Folks, Mr. Charles Clay in the house.
Yes.
Charles, we talk a lot about pivotal moments in our lives through the art of storytelling, because storytelling can help a lot of people out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you know, you've got your friends, your family, your colleagues, and from time to time people go through challenging things, and sometimes completely derails folks to where, boy, they're like, what am I doing with my life? And they might feel like throwing in the towel.
Mm-hmm.
And they really might be right on the other side or they might be on the cusp of success if they just pushed a little farther.
Yep.
And, success is measured in different ways. You seem to be a successful man in your field of endeavor, and people look up to you and appreciate your work, and you're honing your craft day in and day out. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and the road leading up to that today, folks. The trials, the travesties, and everything in between. So why don't you kick it off here with a little intro?
Absolutely. Yeah. Man, trials and tribulations. The challenges are what taps into the gold, the self-discoveries and the growth. So I have a different outlook on challenges now than I did earlier in life. Charles 1.0, one of my biggest teachers was pain. And so that began 2008. I was well out of college with my degree in kinesiology, minor in health and wellness, and had my own business, personal training, health coaching. Life was good in San Diego, living the beach life. And we were up in the mountain, Mammoth Mountain, 2008. Full-on blizzard, like snow coming every which way. Could barely see in front of you, like a tree, blur of a tree 10 feet away. And we looked at each other and we're like, man, they closed down the lifts. It's so dangerous up here in this blizzard, but there's only one way down, so let's charge. And we were having a blast flying down this mountain in this white abyss till about halfway down, I went off a jump that I didn't know was there.
No, dude.
And I was in midair, freaking out. Felt like I just went off a cliff. I had no idea where the landing was at. No. Totally. Yeah, all those falling dreams.
Yeah.
Like, this was reality. And I didn't know which way was up or down. When I hit, it felt like a lightning bolt hit me in the low back. And it was the most excruciating pain that I'd experienced to date. We're talking like 11 on a 10 scale. And I yelled out to my friends, like hoping they could hear me and help me out. They couldn't hear. They were ahead of me. Oh, no. I look at my phone and my phone's dead. And I'm in the middle of Mammoth Mountain in a full-on blizzard. I can barely move. I'm in so much pain.
Why was it dead?
I didn't charge it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
last time you didn't charge your phone.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I guess I wasn't a big enough Chargers fan there in San Diego, coming from Washington State originally.
Wow.
But that moment really helped me find another gear. It's those kind of moments that crack you open, and I just had no other choice. I had to channel my inner Spartan warrior and just click my board off and sit on my board and slide down as far as I could and then just keel over because I couldn't stand up.
Couldn't stand.
Kept doing this till eventually I made it down the mountain, and then I had to go see, all these doctors. I didn't like what they were saying. Every doctor I went and saw, they showed me images, and they're like, you're going to need surgery ASAP or you'll never move the same again. And for a guy that with a background in kinesiology and has a deep appreciation for these sensory suits that we get to call home for such a short time, that was bad news that I didn't want to hear. And even in a state of fight or flight, I remember being able to access my intuition and just say no and choose a different path. And that meant sitting in my apartment in San Diego. I remember I could barely even move to the bathroom. I was in so much pain. And I had to just sit and surrender to a lot of these feelings, emotions, stuff I'd been buried behind and tried not to feel for so many years. Captain Positivity, always seeing the bright side of things, but never really addressing that there was some grief that I hadn't processed. I was feeling fear if I was ever going to move the same again, function fully. Shame, couldn't even stand up straight, let alone get to work and be productive.
Dang.
So melting into all that in a pool of tears allowed for just deep clarity.
Yeah.
It was like on the other side of that was, okay, I'm going to set the intention and do a meditation to receiving all answers to healing this naturally. And dropped in. And literally while I was in that meditation, a friend I hadn't talked to in 2 years sent me a text saying, hey man, I heard your back's in bad shape. Check out NKT, neurokinetic therapy, the work of David Weinstock. And this was like a rabbit hole for me that connected so many dots with my background in physiology, human body, and how everything's all interconnected and how to get answers from the body through muscle testing.
Yeah.
So got him on the phone. I was like, man, I think you can help me. I'm in bad shape. And he set me up with his top student in San Diego. Went and saw Christina. And I walked in for my first session looking like Shakira stuck in a mid-hip dance move. Like my hip is over to the left, my upper body's to the right. And now thinking about it, it's like that was representing how out of alignment I was with my purpose at that time. Because I was showing up in service, but I was taking on like 10 clients a day, running on coffee, full throttle adrenaline, and then going out on the weekends and stuffing emotions with sex, drugs, rock and roll, you name it. So that had to shift. And I didn't pay attention to the, universe will give you like a feather. Hey, you might want to make some changes here. If that doesn't get through, then it's like a brick in the head, a bad hangover or something. And you're like, man, I really need to make some changes. And I think a lot of people can relate. Even when you decide to make changes, oftentimes we can fall back into our old patterns, right? And that was the case for me until here I am showing up for this NKT session. She got me on the table and started testing muscle groups. Just had me push down with my foot, realized my glutes weren't firing. I was like, what do you mean my glutes aren't firing? I have huge glutes. She's like, yep, all form, no function. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. She goes, clench your jaw, and then retested the glutes, and all of a sudden they were strong. I was like, interesting. So my body just told us that my jaw was overcompensating for the glutes, meaning that there was a neurological traffic jam here. And later to find out, jaw's associated with the limbic system, oftentimes carries energy of anger, resentment, revenge. So all this piecing together, right?
Yeah.
But I was blown away by the fact that her releasing my jaw, she's putting on rubber gloves. She's like, I know we just met, but I'm going to have to go in your mouth. I said,
okay. Could be worse.
I said, what? Yeah. She released my jaw, super painful, but I could feel like new neural pathways flowing again and energy
like an
flowing.
Adjustment kind of thing? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a release. Like my jaw was super tight. Like I'd been clenching from the impact, from the unprocessed emotions, carrying it right there. And that becomes the neurological traffic jam. So as she released that, then all of a sudden the glutes are firing again and they're back online. So we did that for a couple other compensation patterns and cleared those up. And I got off the table and was like, whoa, I'm 90% better. I felt like a new man. I was like, this is my path. I want to learn this. I'm going to come see you every week. I took all of David Weinstock's courses, studied under him, became a neurokinetic therapist, and get to help other people have options to surgeries and pain relief by understanding the root cause. Yeah.
Whoa.
So talk about lessons and blessings.
Yeah.
That all happened for me. Like I said, pain was a huge teacher because it's like the check engine light, right, of our bodies. Yeah. If we get a check engine light in our car, usually we're pretty diligent about, better make a change so I don't have a major breakdown. Yeah. But when pain shows up in the body, we've been taught like, okay, let's just numb it out or take a pill or, seek something externally to put a Band-Aid on this so I don't have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And then it just keeps showing up until we go to the source of where it's coming from and make the necessary changes, right? So I appreciate pain for that now. It's like, I can pay attention before it has to get super intense, and make the necessary changes. So,
have you been on a snowboard since?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Conquered that fear. It took me a little while. The first time back was I was a little conservative up there,
PTSD.
but no, I love snowboarding. So it's really cool to not have to give that up because of that experience. In fact, it feels even more empowering. I have more fun and appreciation for it now. I haven't been up in a blizzard again yet, but we'll see what happens.
Fingers crossed. I hope that never happens ever. Well, if it does, you might just go a lot slower.
Sure. Yeah,
just go real slow.
Totally.
Yeah. So let's bring it back. You were a kid, a little guy, a little tyke. Where'd you grow up? In San Diego?
No, I grew up in Washington.
Yes, right. Yeah, Washington. And what part specifically?
Yeah, so I was born in Bellevue.
Nice.
My dad we moved to Issaquah early on, lived there, and then my dad always liked living out in the woods, so we moved north to North Bend, like east of Seattle, about 45 minutes.
Heard it's a nice place.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, small town, great place to grow up.
That's cool. Fun. And what were some of your favorite things to do over there?
Oh, man. I was, so my parents got divorced when I was 4. That was one of my first memories. Mom kind of leaving home, right? And so it was between dad's and mom's place, and totally different environment and vibe, right? Dad was all about work, disciplinarian, instilling the value of $1. Mom was all about, let's go on adventures, enjoy yourself, and gave us a lot of freedom, right? So we loved it at mom's. And it was this little town called Preston. And so I'm a new kid there, 5 years old, and know nobody, but I see a buddy across the street, and I'm like, man, this guy's got a cool dog. I walked over there, said hi, started petting his dog, and his name is Sean. We ended up being best friends. And with that and my brother, I started a biker gang, my first BMX biker gang at 5.
Well, watch out.
In our town. And we had a tree fort that said Scorpions on it. That was our biker gang name. So pretty solid imagination early on, and a team builder.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's real fun. So you're growing up over there in Preston. Yeah. You had your buddies. And tell us a little bit about your younger years. Like, what stood out to you? What kind of challenges did you face that you managed? Like, you could have overcome it in a month, or it could have taken you years to finally discover and tackle, so to speak, or manage. Yeah,
great question. That memory when I was 4, that was like the woman I love most kneeling down, wearing a leather jacket. I remember the color of her lipstick, the smell of her leather, telling me that she was leaving because her and dad are getting divorced, and I didn't know when I would see her again. So that's a lot to deal with for a 4-year-old. And that began the first abandonment wound, right? The classic abandonment wound. A lot of people deal with this. Mom or dad, leaves, and then we feel like we're not good enough. There's all these stories that are created because we're not taught how to process grief, loss, anger,
We're not taught.
No, this isn't taught in school.
I see. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So we don't know how to process all that as a 4-year-old. And so just kind of stuff it, go along my life. And then fast forward, we had the best memories, super vivid memories with my mom, going to the beach every summer in the camper, and just really cool exploring adventures that I have in vivid memories of. And I remember, coming home some days and mom had been drinking. She was an alcoholic too. And so my brother and I were coming home from school, and she was passed out, and we're pouring out bottles in the toilet and having to take care of her. And so she was on a downward spiral. It was super light, most love ever, to super depressed and anxious. And when I was 10 years old, we were picked up by my dad from baseball practice. And I remember I could tell something was wrong right off the bat. And my dad pulls over after we drove a little bit, and I'm looking at my brother what's going on? And our dad told us that our mom had died. and I'm 10 years old. And I just remember feeling like I was just getting hit in the gut with like a baseball bat over and over again, that kind of feeling. And not long after, I was sitting next to my brother at my mom's funeral, and I remember trying my hardest not to cry at my mom's funeral because of some beliefs I picked up from the older kids I hung out with, that it's not cool to cry. It's a sign of weakness. Men don't cry, that kind of stuff.
Fair.
So that took me years to finally process layer by layer that grief and the anger from losing my mom.
And the delay of grief, or the delay of the expression of the grief. What tolls, if any, did that take on you until you actually address them?
Well, there was, after that, it almost felt like dark ages for a couple years. Like I remember like the kids I was hanging out with, older kids, getting into trouble, vandalism and stuff, that was like something to like feel excitement for, you know? And so that kind of numbing out that pain, I wanted to feel something. So I'd go out with these, you know, older kids, sneak out at night and, you know, light a fire in a dumpster or just get into trouble vandalizing. And so I was on a bad path. And the good news was my dad moved to North Bend at that time. So we moved from Issaquah to North Bend, and I'm in 8th grade. So I got to like recreate myself essentially. And I'm the new kid, kind of small town, you know, so I gained a lot of confidence and got to like, you know, be more me and start over again, really. And so made a lot of friends, got into sports. That kept me out of trouble for a while, but I definitely had like an outward, you know, unhealthy expression of anger, right? That I hadn't processed from the grief and anger. And so that would show up as like through high school, through college, not even like going out starting fights. In fact, I was more of like the life of the party, having a blast. We'd go and I'm dancing with the girls, having a blast. But every so often at these parties, I would get confronted by a group of guys, and they would start crap with me. And I'm like, man, I'm having a blast. Why are you talking smack? You know, like they were just looking for a fight. And back then, you know, I had so much pride. I'd take the first punch, give the last 9 or 10, and get the flip out of Dodge before the cops show up. And that was a pattern. And so I was kind of like, I don't know why that's happening, but whatever, I'm going to go do my thing. And then it kept happening until it's like, you know, finally I had to confront that anger and recognize that, whoa, this is unprocessed energy.
In your college days?
Yeah. So through college, it was like realizing that I had been harboring this anger, and then you go to a party, alcohol is involved, that brings it out to the surface. Anybody else that's got repressed anger, it's like law of attraction brings us together, and then sparks fly, right? So recognizing that and getting to finally have some emotional intelligence and channel that energy into something constructive. I got into boxing, got into, you know, I was training hard, working out. So I was expelling that energy and learned some tools and techniques to actually process that. And that shifted everything for me. Like literally when I had an outlet of healthy anger expression and did some inner work on that, that was one of the big shifts that I noticed, that I did internal work that created a total shift in my experience of reality. Because after that, nobody ever messed with me again. And so it was like a huge shift. Like when I resolved that, then there's not other people harboring anger that are like looking for that in me. So it was just fascinating and it was a huge like aha moment of like, wow, there's something to this inner work. So that's been my deep dive on a lot of the healing, is the emotional aspects of pain that are unprocessed. And essentially, like, you know, as humans, we're in this epic dojo for the highest experiences of learning, and we signed up for the full spectrum of emotions. You know, there's no, like just enjoying the good ones. You know, I did that for a long time. Yeah. And it was fine. I'd hit a ceiling though of how much joy I could experience because I wasn't willing to go to the depths of the heavy emotions. And so by going there, I discovered gold. And, even with something like anxiety, right? I think a lot of people can relate to this day and age. That was one that I was dealing with kind of undercover. Like I could hide it well, but there was definitely a layer of anxiety that had not been resolved. And it kept getting worse and worse. So I was good at like hiding it under the covers, make sure nobody knew, and trying to deal with it on my own. But over time, it just kept getting like a volcano boiling up and getting more and more intense and showing up in like the worst case scenarios. So
the fighting.
Right. That and like, I got into public speaking, started doing more, talks on stage and that like scared the crap out of me. So it was a huge like leap into dancing through fear. And I had some like, some times where I was like, couldn't find the words and wasn't super smooth because I was dealing with so much anxiety up in my head. Right. So I was like, well, this is a pursuit that I really feel called to and I want to get better at. So I'm going to have to take a look at this anxiety. And I tried everything else, all the mind's band-aids. Like, oh, you're feeling anxiety, uncomfortable, hurry, go on Netflix and escape from it. Go on Instagram and go on a scroll hole and find some dopamine or go in the fridge and stuff it with something, right?
Yeah.
But instead,
100%.
I just sat with it and watched the mind give me the whole Rolodex of like temporary Band-Aids and instead just kept sitting with this uncomfortable feeling, realizing that anxiety, as much as that word has a charge based on our past experiences, it can feel like nails on a chalkboard, even the word alone. And it has a constrictive nature, but really it's just energy. And so energy is information. So there was some important information that wanted to be shared with me. And so I invited it in for anxiety and literally was like, let's see what's here. Yeah. And
this guy.
It's crazy because underneath those uncomfortable feelings that I sat with longer than ever was gold. It was literally like, wow, this anxiety was like an old friend that had been pounding at the door, trying to share an important message with me. And that message that I gained was, he helped me take a look at my biggest fear right in the face.
Yeah.
Anxiety is fear-based, and it's usually like not trusting in the flow of life, right? The process of life. And so I got to look at my greatest fear, and it was deathbed regrets. Getting to the end of my life and playing small, taking ideas to the grave or messages on my heart that I know could help benefit a lot of people. So that fear became a catalyst and was actually like a healthy fear for me because it superseded all the smaller fears of getting rejected, of looking stupid, of whatever. Like, who cares? I want to play full out in this arena. And so it inspired me to get to work on the ideas I had, some of the online programs that I had, the laser focus method, the freedom from pain, these courses that I created that have helped a lot of people. If I had kept playing small and just kept trying to numb out anxiety, it probably wouldn't have been inspired to create those till much later. And so it was literally like getting to shake hands with an old friend that had been knocking at the door, trying to tell me, hey, I'm only here when you are over consuming instead of choosing to create, because you're an epic creator. And so we're all creators. We've just been taught and conditioned to consume information, consume food, drinks, all the things, pills, like whatever, right? So that was a game changer for me. And discovering that gold in the depths of anxiety was like, I still feel anxiety, but I have a different relationship with it now. It's like, oh, thanks, friend. You're right. I've been over consuming and it's time to get back to work on creating more. And that can be creating cool experiences, retreats, that can be whatever lights me up. But that now my relationship with it is like, oh, appreciate that. I get the message and I'll make the change. And because of that, it's inspired me to sit deeper in the depths of grief, of, the heavier emotions,
Yeah. Would you say that it's somewhat of a muscle to be strengthened?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in a practical sense, what are some things that folks can do on whether it's writing a certain way or thinking a certain way to discover what you have discovered?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is what I help support people through.
Yeah.
Having a process, I offer an inner peace process that literally, instead of choosing the Band-Aids of the mind, which just keep the energy stuck and keeps the subconscious beliefs running so that you're stuck in this perpetual suffering, instead you can choose, well, let me go to the source of where this is coming from and feel through, let my body metabolize this energy finally through this process and get to see and identify where these limiting beliefs came from related to those emotions the first time we experienced them. And so it's fascinating because you learn tons of self-discoveries and gold through this process every time by going to the source of it. And on the other end of that, it's like a lot of dreams can come true, because when you're harboring beliefs like I had of, wow, if my mom left and my dad was yelling at me, I'm not good enough. Right? I must never be good enough to keep the woman I love around. So love has to equal pain, and all these stories that I created as a 4-year-old when she first left, and then reinforced when she left this world when I was 10, right? So using this inner peace process helped me go back to my 10-year-old, back to my 4-year-old, and get to reconnect with that part of me that needs the most love, support, and safety. And through this process, provide that so that I'm unlocking, allowing my body to feel, let those tears fall, hold my 10-year-old, and my 4-year-old, and understand where those beliefs came from that aren't true. They're just in that moment of challenge. As a youngster, we create these stories, and then they perpetuate in our subconscious and show up as blocks to money and abundance, or, conflicts in the same arguments in our relationships, like these kind of things, or health problems.
Yeah, the way I see it, let's say, or to paint a picture for somebody, you're surfing, everything's great, woohoo, having a good old time, and all of a sudden something derails you, traumatic event, what have you, and all of a sudden, boom, you just smash that sucker, right? You just hit some kind of jetty in the water, and it can take a really long time to perhaps pick up your surfboard, walk over the jetty, and then continue surfing.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, let's say somebody recently encountered something like that. What is something that you would encourage them to do, and do it hard, do it fast, do it now, so that they're not prolonging any lessons?
Yeah. So 2 things. One of the greatest tools is right under our nose. It's the power of breath. Right. So when you're experiencing, you're like, when you're,
a mustache.
That too. That is it. That's a superpower as well.
There you go.
So our breath can control and modulate our nervous system. Right. So if we're in a fight or flight state, you've just been hit on the jetty, you're injured, or you're dealing with some heavy emotions, or life's throwing you some crazy curveballs and your life feels like it's falling apart. So first, the mind's going to go crazy. It's like seeing all the feelings in the body going, like hurry, go get, like run, whatever, avoid this feeling.
Yeah.
So instead, the first thing you can do is use this tool. And I use a 4-8 expansion breath, and I teach all my clients. It's a powerful breath technique where you're breathing in for 4, expanding like a balloon in every direction, and then exhaling for an 8 count. And by slowing down your exhales, it helps you move from the head space, which is like Problemville, right, into 12-inch elevator ride, into the intelligence of your heart, your body that has tons of wisdom. And in that shift, it's like calming your nervous system can help you start to see the lessons and blessings. And then you can ask some really important questions. self-inquiry is really powerful because what it does is you're giving your brain a task, a mission, because otherwise the brain's just going to go into like, fear mode, programs, we're in big trouble, like hurry, resort to consuming stuff, right?
Oh.
And instead of doing that, you can literally just ask powerful questions and it'll give your brain a task to do, just like a heat seeker missile. And so one of those first questions is, how is this happening for me? And that's a powerful question because even if you're injured or you're dealing with loss or you feel like your life's falling apart, that question alone is taking you out of victim mode, which is really powerful because when we're in that like, why is this happening to me? Victim mode, that can essentially prolong the experience of suffering, right? So to flip the switch and take your power back, it's like, I have some accountability in this experience, right? And so how is it happening for me? Knowing that challenges yield growth and golden nuggets and lessons and deeper discoveries of self. So the second question is, what needs to change, right? Like what in my life needs to shift, And the third question is, what are the lessons and blessings that I can learn? And those key questions will give your mind, then your mind can be a beautiful instrument of the heart and can be a heat seeker missile to looking for answers instead of going into default fear patterns.
Yeah,
right?
just running back to boom, boom.
And even if you don't get the answers right off the bat, being patient with it and just allowing, keep using your breath cycle to calm your nervous system, then you'll start seeing some of the synchronicities and signs show up that are like, oh, this needs to change. I've been over consuming alcohol and then it's leading to more injuries or, whatever the thing is for them, that you can begin to recognize and become real honest with yourself. Okay, my body's trying to tell me that this can change. And by honoring that intelligence from your heart, your body, then you can make some major shifts in your life and come back into full alignment. And that's essentially, why my body looked like Shakira stuck in a mid-hip dance move, because I was so out of alignment with my purpose, going out on the weekends and just binging, over consuming food, alcohol, the things. And I got to know that part of me. And a lot of this work, I've just gained a plethora of tools that I get to share people for self-healing. And it's very empowering because when you get to know those voices in your head, right? Even when we try to repress those, it's like they come back with a vengeance even louder, right? Dude. Imagine it's like a family going on in your head and you got, one of the first ones I met that I was trying to avoid was, I call him Pac-Man. And he was the over-consumer. He's like, more is always better, right? So, want to go out for a drink with the fellas? Let's do it. And then one drink turns into 5, 6, right? And that was Pac-Man taking the wheel. And I was unconscious of that. I was just along for the ride, letting this voice, this program run the show until I had to deal with the consequences, waking up the next day, feeling like crap, brain fog, missing, showing up late to work or whatever. And then until I got to know that part of me, of my psyche, right? And recognized 3 things. 1, give it a name. 2, give it a visual, a character, so that you can see it when it's trying to take the wheel. Yeah. You can imagine you're in an RV driving your whole family, right? Yeah. And you're going on a trip and your higher self's driving and you got it all mapped out and you're on a good path. But then you got the drunk Uncle Biff that wants to, take the wheel, no, we're going to stop at McDonald's, and he wants to take the wheel, has a lot to say. And eventually that voice gets so annoying that all the other voices, all the other family members are like, hey, listen, Biff, you're voted off the island. We're pulling over and you're out of here, right? And you try to kick those voices out of our head.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. Tried that for years. That's like the equivalent of you drop off your Uncle Biff. Now he's drunk in public. you guys keep driving, but now he gets arrested and he's thrown in jail, and now we got to turn around and go bail him out, right? And now I got more problems. So instead, it's actually integrating these parts and understanding what part of your psyche has been running the show, what kind of programs are running. This is a game changer because I then got to understand the purpose of Pac-Man, right? I'm like, so what is this voice's purpose, this family member in my head? Yeah. And his purpose is simply to make sure that we're not missing out on all the great pleasures, tastes, flavors, experiences of life, right? And so knowing that, I'm like, man, I can love on this guy. I have some compassion for that part of me now. Yeah. And so now it's like every time, you know, I'm going to go have a drink or get invited to, you know, a huge dinner celebration and dessert and all the things, I can see when Pac-Man's wanting to take the wheel and order more and keep going over consuming. And I can have a little inner dialogue and just be like, hey, what do you say we enjoy this drink like it's our last? And we'll just be a food connoisseur, enjoy every flavor, the texture, like we're going to write a novel about it. And then he's happy because he's like, cool, we get to up our enjoyment. Awesome. So he takes the back seat. Now my higher self's driving again. So now I'm making better decisions, wake up with less consequences the next day. And then I'm developing healthier habits by getting to know all these parts.
And when you take the blindfold off, you're able to see that the one glass, the one drink, maybe you're able to see it a little bit more clearly and more specifically and see it as a lot of sips. Right. A lot of sips, right? And that kind of applies to a lot of areas in life and facing truths, facing demons that are, you know, just hanging on and nagging us.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. And so, you know, then it's like I have a whole process for this, and I help people through getting to know all these parts, right, of our psyche. There's the, you know, Judge Dredd. He's like the instant quick to judge people, right? He's like, oh, don't trust this guy, you know, he's effed up, whatever. That part of me is, we all have this part that's like hardwired all the way back to the beginning of mankind and even medieval days. Back then, you had to know real quick when you met a stranger if you could trust them, if they were friend or foe. It meant like, are they, you know, a teammate, or are they going to try to kill me for my resources, right? Yeah. So that's been pretty hardwired in. So it's like getting to know that program, that voice, giving him a mental image. I picture, you know, Sylvester Stallone, I am the law, right? When he's trying to take the wheel and do his judging, I can appreciate and love on that part because he's a protector, right? And these are all aspects of our ego. And the ego is always trying to keep us safe in things that we've already experienced, right? It's like survival mode. Yeah. So even if that means going back to the familiarity of pain and suffering, because at least we know we can survive there. So the ego is like a comprehensive tour guide, right, through the human experience. It's always like, no, don't get too close to the edge. Like, which is great. You can team up with this aspect and honor our soul, which is, you know, the divinity of all that we are, that's here for the most expansion, the most epic learning in this land of contrast, you know, where you can feel light and dark, heavy and light. You can feel pain and pleasure, right? I've had experiences of what it's like where we come from, you know, outside of these bodies, and it is not the same contrast that we experience here. And so it's such a blessing to be, well, on my journey too, a lot of healing has come from some plant medicines that I've been intuitively called to. And even some medicines such as 5-MeO, which is toad medicine. It's a sacred toad, the poison from the toad. It's called, you know, they take it and use it as this sacred ritual for DMT connecting to, you know, some call it the God molecule, right? And so I always, when I bring up these type of medicines, I always recommend like honoring your intuition. It's not for everybody.
Right.
And yet
They're intense.
Exactly. And so, being called to that, moving through, dancing through all the layers of fears, the ego of like the unknown of that, right? And then getting to experience what it's like, the feeling of when we're just energy and no longer in physical dense form. And it is like experiencing everything and nothing. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. It's amazing. And so going from that and then coming back into full embodiment again is like a deeper appreciation for this sensory suit, and then recognizing that, connecting the dots, looking back, I can realize another reason why I was called to that medicine and to have that experience was because fast forward, my dad, who I love dearly, he's an incredible father. He, gave me this phone call when this was like 8 years ago now. And I remember like it was yesterday. He called and I knew the tone of his voice. I was like, oh man, something's up. And he said, I just left the doctor's office and I got some bad news. And he said, what happened, Dad? He said, they did some CAT scans and found out that I have stage 4 lung cancer. And they gave me 2 months to live. And I paused, took a breath, and I said, Dad, do you want to beat this? Do you want to live? And he said, you're damn right I do. I said, good. Then don't listen to a word those doctors said. We're going to get you on everything that's been proven to already cure cancer. Already, people are already beating it.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
There's the Gerson Institute in Mexico. There's all these protocols. And essentially, like we're going to eliminate all the things that cause the cancer and then add in the good stuff that helps cleanse your body and your system. And so fascinating enough, his habit was smoking. He would smoke most of his life and then he went to e-cigs. So ironically, coming back full circle with this theme, as I dove into Chinese medicine, lungs represent grief. And so if we are unable or unwilling to process grief, then this is the coping mechanism for it. Smoking, right? Lungs. So that was fast forward. We got him set up on, infrared sauna at his house. We got him I taught him how to do coffee enemas. We got him green drinks. We're cutting out all the sugar, quit smoking. And from giving him 2 months to live, that doctor, to turning that into an amazing 2 years of fully getting to share everything on my heart, knowing that his time could be closer than we had hoped. And I remember getting calls from my brother and he'd be like, hey, Dad's in the hospital again, come fly out. But prior to that, there were times when he got a CAT scan and there was 0 cancer. They were like, dude, I don't know what you've been doing. He baffled the doctors, but you're incredible results. And so, and then we'd celebrate. He'd kind of get back into his old patterns, bringing in sugar again and started smoking again. And so it was really interesting to be right alongside him on this journey. And I would go fly in and visit him at the hospital and be like, okay, doc, what do we need to sign off to get him out of here? And he's like, well, I was like, if I run him a couple laps around here and, sign the paperwork, we can get him out here and to the park, get some sun, vitamin D. And he's like, all right, this, that, and the other thing. And so, here I am, my dad's 6'5", my hero growing up. Yeah. Big, strong, powerful dude. And he was a builder. He loved building homes, these epic custom homes for people. What a legacy he's left behind, And here I'm helping him on, a little stroller, doing 3 laps around the hospital so we can get him signed off and out of the hospital and get some sun, go hang out at the park, get him grounded. And I just remember every smile, every little smirk and laugh was just gold. Because when you recognize how temporary we are here for. It's a deep appreciation for life, and it's a deeper level of presence that comes with that. And the benefit of that is that by being fully present, like these moments I had with my dad, I got to really like anchor in these experiences as vivid memories in HD, that I'll cherish forever. And fast forward, my brother called and I flew home again, and he was at home with some nurses, and I just knew like this time was different. I walked in and I saw his body, and he was just in so much pain, and became so frail. And like this time I like rolled down my sleeves and realized, man, I'm not here to like help save him. Like this is like here to help him transition, And so it came down to those last moments with my father. And I remember holding his hand, and he was still with us, but he was just holding on by, it was like his body was in so much pain. He was, just holding on by a thread for us. And I could sense that. And I just said, Dad, we love you so much. We'll always be with you. And where you're going is so peaceful. Like it's so beautiful. And I could say that with full confidence because I'd gotten a glimpse of that experience from that 5-MeO sacred toad medicine. And the last words I said were, you don't have to fight anymore. And he took his last breath after those words, and I felt his life leave his body and his hand, and it was just like this instant tears and just a gift of getting to be with him all the way up to those last moments and really rejoice in his entire life and everything that he's done. And I get to carry the torch, and I'll just never forget. There was a moment prior to that where a friend had come over and he was playing the guitar, and he played this song called Let It Flow. And I sat next to my dad and I put my hand on his shoulder by his heart. And I just had the biggest ugly cry, just fully let it all go, right? Like more than I'd ever been seen in before. Snot bubbles, tears falling, just knowing that I'm losing my dad. And I found so much beauty in the depths of that grief. Like I found beauty in the fact that through liquid emotion, he gets to witness how much he means to me, and get to see what grief looks like in its full expression, which was ironically what he had trouble processing. And so it's just been this real deep initiations in life. Losing both my parents has been really the lessons and blessings I've gained from that are a deeper appreciation for life. And I still connect with them in a different way now. And it's, really allowed me to fully live life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, there's people out there, lots and lots of people out there that are probably struggling with similar experiences.
Yeah.
Where their perspective might not be the same. Right.
Yep.
But they might have a negative thought about it, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
How can we encourage these people that are dealing with something like this?
Yeah. So first thing, this was a big initiation for me too. I can only teach as far as I've been initiated through and learned, right? And one of them was I had this always trying to do it myself thing, right? I think a lot of guys can relate to this.
Yeah.
When I would love to help others, but when my stuff was coming up and I was like, okay, off to the man cave to go like hibernate and isolate. And I think that so many people dealing with anxiety, that's why close cousin is depression. Because when you're feeling uncomfortable with anxiety, most people tend to isolate and not want to go see people or go out and get connection and connect with other humans. They want to, try to do it themselves or isolate. And then that leads to even deeper depression. So it can be a pretty vicious cycle. And so the first thing I'd recommend is reaching out. Like, that's the most important time to connect with others.
And now there's probably more to that, right? Because not everybody's got a strong network.
Right.
Or people in their lives that they can really lean on like that.
And so then your intuition comes, right? It's like combining setting an intention, like wherever you're at, I want to heal this, or I'm intending to live my fullest life, or I'm intending to move through this with as much ease and grace as possible, right? And that's, again, setting your mind on looking for the things and answers to that happening. So being very intentional can be profound, especially when you're in the depths of depression or anxiety or grief. It's like, hey, I want to find the lessons and blessings in this. Show me the way. And what you might find is that people pop up in your experience, right?
Yeah.
And then your intuition might tell you, hey, intuitively, I feel like this person can help me, or that they have some codes they could share, or that they might be able to support me through this, or so follow that thread, because it's usually the intuition that's more of a quiet wisdom voice, right? And it can be a feeling too, right? It's more of the expansive feeling. The mind, the ego is the loud, noisy voices, right? So when you listen, quiet yourself with the breath, and then listen to that intuition, it will help guide you to resources, to support, to the people that can help you through those things. And then here's the great part. Every time you say yes to that intuitive, opportunity, every time you're saying yes to your intuition and you honor that and reach out to that person or take that inspired action that your intuition's telling you to, you are building that muscle. You're building that connection with your intuition and thus connecting even deeper with your soul.
Yeah.
And so every time you say yes to that, it's like gluten-free breadcrumbs from the universe showing you the path through, right? So when those people show up, that you resonate with, don't hesitate to reach out. Ask for the support that you need, even with the network you have, or if you don't, just the people that you resonate with, reach out to them. Don't try to just do your hardest challenges all alone. We're meant to help each other out through this. And I've just been blessed to go through these high-level initiations to acquire some really high-level natural healing modalities and self-healing empowerment tools that I get to share that can help other people on their self-discovery and their healing journey. And it's just such an honor to get to do this work and to have a process, the inner peace process, that when it comes time, you're getting triggered, right? Someone cuts you off, you're getting that normal anger trigger or whatever is coming up for you. You can either use the mind's Band-Aid, better go get some ice cream, go on Netflix, go consume more information, which just perpetuates the issue, right? To begin getting triggered more and more. Or now you can have a step-by-step process. I guide people through it, and then I give them the step-by-step process to going to the source of where that emotion was first experienced, and recognize all the stories that were created by that younger version of you that are still running in the subconscious. The I'm not good enough, the love has to always equal pain, the all these limiting beliefs that will show up in your reality, in your business, in your as upper limit problems, right? So this is a beautiful process because it allows you to recognize where those came from and pull those like weeds and plant deeper seeds of truth. And through this process, you get to connect with your younger version of yourself for reparenting and your higher self, a connection with, a future version of you that is all knowing. And in that, it helps you embody these deeper truths, the wisdoms, so that you can release these old limiting beliefs, as well as letting your body finally metabolize the energy that's been stuck. On the other side of that, so many dreams come true in fast form, because it's like you release the floodgates. It frees up energy. And then I teach a visioneering process, which is like declaring your North Star, like what it is you want to create in this life and leave behind. And so now you have all this new energy flowing because there's no internal blocks. So you can channel that into creating, right? And the more you're creating and following those breadcrumbs of your highest excitement and saying yes to your intuition, you're going to feel less anxiety, less depression.
You're going to be charged up.
Yeah, exactly.
You're fired up.
And even when those emotions or challenges do come, you can see it through a different lens of curiosity and have some tools like Batman with a utility belt of like, cool, here's a storm. I got this. I'm prepared for this. And I know that there's lessons and blessings in it and growth for me. So that's a totally different outlook than like Charles 1.0, dealing with avoidance of challenges and, perpetuating suffering for so long. And what a blessing, to get to gain all this experience from that.
Yeah. Wow.
So I hope that answers your question. There's you got your breath, your tool right under your nose, right? 4-8 expansion breath. Exhaling longer than you inhale. It's like taking an elevator ride from Problemville, the mind, 12 inches down into the heart, the wisdom of your body's intelligence. Every single cell in your body is connected to source, a higher power, and knows how to come back into alignment. It's what we try to resist that keeps getting stuck and creates blockages.
Totally.
And so it's nice to have this tool, this inner peace process to choose. Well, I can go to the source of this and resolve it right now, gain some lessons and blessings, and allow more of my dreams to come true. Or I can choose to go in the fridge, have another drink, go on Netflix.
Yeah, man.
And when you start using this and see the results, then those don't even, you can just watch those float by like silly thoughts of the mind, know, and just keep choosing this. And that's why I continue to take my own medicine, because I have 2 little girls, one of them 6-month-old, one's 2, and they are just, talk about great teachers. Like they're incredible teachers of joy, of patience, they're truly my inspiration and inspire me to keep taking my own medicine, because every time I'm triggered, that's a gateway to something that wants to be resolved and healed within me. And when I take it through the inner peace process, I'm not only healing that for myself, but I'm releasing old negative limiting programs and subconscious limiting beliefs, as well as generational wounds like the abandonment wound. By healing that, then I'm not passing it on to my girls and to their kids and generations. So this type of healing work is the best gift that you can give your family, your loved ones. And it can be inspiring, Others might be like, hey,
yeah, not kidding.
You're glowing. Like, what have you been doing? It's working. And so then, as if they're in a place where they want to change something in their life, then they're open to support, instead of what we tend to do is like, all right, you're effed up. You need to change this, this, and this. And like, how many people love hearing that from your family? That obviously doesn't work well, right?
No.
So instead, change yourself from within. The greatest thing we can do for this planet is to heal ourselves and resolve these generational wounds that have been passed down for so long. And in doing that, it frees not only ourselves, but our future generations. And our future is looking bright.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Folks, no. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to this guy right here. Yeah. How can people learn more about you specifically, the things that you help people with, and everything in between? What's the best, fastest, quickest way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, charlesclay.coach. You can find all the information there. In fact, there's a gift for everyone, all the listeners. Go to charlesclay.coach, scroll to the bottom. As soon as you add your email for the newsletter, you're going to get a free gift. And this is the gift of alignment. This is the gift of, a ritual that you can use for a good morning ritual. It's a 22-minute movement, breath work, and meditation practice that I've used to help me through numerous challenges, and it helps you reclaim your full sovereign chi. And sovereign chi is essentially reclaiming all of your own life force energy, filling up in each and every cell, so there's no room for anything else. You can return to sender, and you know it's working when it feels good. Yeah. And so if you feel inspired, if your intuition calls, get that free gift, try it out, see how it works for you. If you like it, use it as your good morning ritual, and watch how your entire life shifts when you start your day like that. It's empowering. So that's a fun free gift. There's tons of other offerings too. There's a laser focus method. It's an online training to help you create more than you're consuming, and thus, as a side effect, make more money, work smarter than harder, and enjoy more vacation vibration. And Freedom from Pain will be up soon. That was a group training I ran, as well as some really powerful group and one-on-one retreats.
And Instagram?
Yeah, so Instagram, charlesclay.coach, same. Yeah, so connect with me there, and shoot me a DM about anything you want to dive deeper on. I'm happy to connect. And it's truly an honor. Now,
just we're gonna switch gears real fast here, just because I'm curious. So you got the wedding band, and then you got this guy over here. What's the story?
This is from a Native American friend.
Oh.
And it's my life force energy, which is turquoise, right? So this represents my vacation vibration, like the essence. Yeah. You have a unique essence, vibration, frequency, medicine that you bring to the world that nobody else ever has and ever will. And so you're an epic creator. So is everybody listening to this. We just forget sometimes. And it's okay to forget as long as you remember and take inspired action to keep creating.
And then the necklace here.
This is, it says my first daughter's name, Sophia, and daddy established 2020.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Congrats.
And Arete, which is...
Arete?
Yeah.
So, what does that mean?
Well, it means connection to higher self.
Ed Milet's got a program, Arete Syndicate. And I always wonder what that word means.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can mean different things for different people, but
there you go.
Yeah, we're the meaning makers after all.
I like that. Yeah. You folks, you heard it here first. Mr. Charles Clay, hit him up on Instagram, go to his website. This is extremely inspiring and helpful chat today. I'm extremely grateful for you coming by. Thank you so much.
Yeah, brother.
And folks, signing off. Greg Carlson, Pivotal Moments Podcast. Till next time.
Inner peace.
Cheers.